Well, back here at home, the mother of a 4-year-old disabled boy says her son is being punished by the Corpus Christi Independent School District because of his disability. As our Andrew Ellison reports, this could cost the young boy for the rest of his life. He has more as 6 investigates.
He got in the car and he said, "They took me away from my best friend," and he started crying.
That's what Linda Anderson's grandson told her several weeks ago, after he was pulled out of his kindergarten class, taken to the principal's office, and told he was going back to preschool.
I get teary every time I think about what they did.
Alexander Owsley is 4 years old and suffers from progressive hearing loss. Despite his disadvantage, he's a bright kid.
Which one's Sweden? I don't think you saw it. Yeah, that one's Sweden.
Alexander is so bright that last year CCISD admitted him into a pre-K 4 class even though he was only 3. He went to school at the Early Childhood Development Center on the Texas A&M Corpus Christi campus. His teacher wore a transmitter like this around her neck so that her voice would come through loud and clear into Alexander's hearing aids. Like all his classmates, he graduated from pre-K.
He was very excited all summer about starting kindergarten. We went school shopping for kindergarten. He couldn't wait to see his friends.
But Alexander's mother, Jimmy Owsley, says his kindergarten teacher immediately had problems keeping up with his hearing aid system. Batteries would go dead in the middle of the day, and while she continually worked with the teacher on how to keep the batteries charged, the problems kept occurring.
So I talked to the principal, again talked to the teacher, and talked to the nurse as to who could help maintain the hearing aids.
Then, after 3 weeks of school, the district decided to move Alexander back down to pre-K 4, citing state law that a child must turn 5 by September 1st to be in kindergarten. Alexander's father, Brian, was shocked.
They knew he was 4 when he finished pre-K 4. They knew he was 4 when he enrolled in kindergarten on August 25th.
It was okay last year. It was okay at the beginning of this year before I insisted that they use the FM system and change the batteries. I think the district is using it as an excuse to discriminate against him.
Owsley and her husband filed a grievance with the district asking that Alexander be put back into kindergarten. Because of that grievance, CCISD won't answer any of our questions about the situation. And the worst part is, while the Owsleys and the district go back and forth, Alexander's hearing is getting worse.
There's no cure, it's never going to get better, and it will only progress. So it's very hurtful because he needs every single piece of sound and education he can get as soon as he can get it.
And that's why it makes her angry to observe his pre-K 4 class. Because while Alexander repeats things he already knows, like his ABCs and colors, the kindergarten class next door is learning things that would actually help him while there's still time.
This is a kid who needs sounds and learn words and sentences.
According to CCISD, students can take tests to move up in grade level even if they're too young. But that can only happen once the child reaches first grade. Owsley says she and her husband won't stop fighting to get their son back where he belongs.
Everyone says that they're powerless to change it. Well, who has the power? I mean, is that too much to ask? And time is of the essence. We don't have a year or two while his hearing loss progresses to kind of figure out that, oh, they made a mistake.
The Owsleys have also filed complaints with the Texas Education Agency and the U.S. Office for Civil Rights. Andrew Ellison, 6 Investigates.
Tonight, the Texas Education Agency speaks out about the case of a 4-year-old disabled CCISD student.
As we've reported, the district demoted that boy from kindergarten back to pre-K a few weeks ago. Andrew Ellison has the update in this 6 Investigates follow-up.
The district cited state law when it demoted the boy, a law that requires a child to turn 5 by September 1st to be in kindergarten. While TEA says CCISD technically shouldn't have admitted the boy to kindergarten, the agency also says it probably wouldn't have punished the district for doing so.
Which one's Sweden? I don't think you saw it. Yeah, that one's Sweden.
4-year-old Alexander Owsley is a bright kid. His parents were proud last year when CCISD placed him in a pre-K 4 class even though he was only 3. And because Owsley suffers from progressive hearing loss, every day he can learn something new is critical.
They thought it was fine for him to start kinder this year. He's certainly smart enough to do it.
But when he started kindergarten, his teacher had trouble keeping up with his hearing aid system, like changing the batteries when needed. His parents say that's why he was sent back to pre-K. The state says an underage child can enter kindergarten under certain conditions.
A district can admit the child into kindergarten if they have a local policy in place that allows that. The child has to complete pre-K successfully, and they have to pass a third grade test.
While Alexander passed pre-K, he was never given that test, and CCISD doesn't have a policy that allows early admission. The district says this is why it had to move him back. And if that's the only reason, that's unfortunate, because TEA says things wouldn't have changed even if the agency found out. Would TEA really punish CCISD?
It's not likely.
The Owsleys filed a grievance with the district, claiming Alexander was sent down because of his disability. A lawyer from Houston has been brought in to do an investigation, but as the weeks go by, the Owsleys say Alexander is suffering.
Last night when I bathed him, he started crying and said he didn't want to go to school anymore and don't make him go back. I dried him off. He wouldn't get dressed. He rolled around on the floor and said, "Don't make me go back. I don't want to go back to school."
We called the lawyer conducting that investigation last week. She told us the district can't comment in part because the parents haven't given consent. Well, the Owsleys gave that consent over the weekend, but the district still won't comment because the investigation isn't complete. Andrew Ellison, 6 Investigates.
6 Investigates has discovered a law the entire state has been following for nearly 20 years is a mistake.
Now, as we reported, it's a provision that deals with young children and advancement into kindergarten. Our Andrew Ellison joins us here in the studio now with this 6 Investigates follow-up.
You know, Lee, Jen, in Texas, a child has to be 5 by September 1st to enter kindergarten, but if a bright kid who's too young wants to enter kindergarten early, he or she has to pass a 3rd grade standardized test. It's something the Texas Education Agency says makes no sense, and now nearly 20 years after its creation, we've discovered it was basically a clerical error.
This is a problem. This is a matter of the statute that needs to be fixed. It needs to be cleaned up. The very idea that we would require a 4-year-old to pass a 3rd grade test is more than restrictive. It's oppressive.
It's oppressive, and it's something Paul Sadler never intended to happen. He co-authored the bill this requirement comes from, a bill that passed nearly 20 years ago in 1995.
This was a rewrite of the entire education code. It was 1,200 pages. I was responsible for it. Went through 3 days of debates on the House floor, over 1,000 amendments to it.
Senate Bill 1, as it was known then, is the basis for the state's entire education code, a code that seems to have a serious crack in it.
I don't know where that language came from. I honestly don't. It looks to me like a very serious drafting mistake or error.
He's saying it's a misprint, something that Sadler, who's a huge proponent of early childhood development, would never have allowed in the bill had he caught it.
It's contrary to everything I ever did in the legislature.
To be fair, a bill that massive is more likely to have mistakes, but Sadler says that's no excuse.
It concerns me because if it restricts one child, we've made a mistake, and I don't think that's not a good thing.
Here in Corpus Christi, there's at least one child who might be restricted, a bright child.
Which one's Sweden? I don't think you saw it. Yeah, that one's Sweden.
We've been telling you about Alexander Owsley for months. He has progressive hearing loss, and his parents say he was demoted from kindergarten to pre-K because of his disability and a teacher's unwillingness to periodically check his hearing aid batteries. CCISD says he was demoted because he's only 4 years old.
I think the district is using it as an excuse to discriminate against him.
He'll likely lose his hearing in the next few years, meaning every moment he can hear and learn is precious. But the district says the only way it'll let him back into kindergarten is if he passes that 3rd grade test. If he doesn't pass, if he's denied, he would be an unintended consequence of a simple yet horrible mistake.
I'm surprised that we've gone almost 20 years with this code and this provision hasn't been brought to our attention either by school officials or parents. Simply saying, you know, this defies common sense. It shouldn't be there.
You know, Lee, Stephania, we've actually recently learned CCISD is not going to let Alexander in kindergarten this year. Instead, he'll learn some kinder material while remaining in his pre-K class. At the end of this school year, he'll take a kindergarten level exam If he passes, he'll go to first grade at the start of next school year.
Okay, so that's a good update there. Now, as for the lawmakers are looking to change it in that upcoming legislative session, so how is that going to work and how long is that going to take?
Normally, when something is identified as a mistake, there's something called a cleanup bill that they can use to fix it. It goes through every legislative session. Its purpose is to fix mistakes from past bills. Problem here is it'll probably have to be an amendment process, because something like this, once you remove that provision, you got to find something to put in its place. You can imagine there's going to be a lot of debate as to what is a reasonable assessment, what is a reasonable replacement for that provision. That's why an amendment process is more likely.
Okay, now assuming they agree to all that and they work out the wording, the amendment passes, how long before it actually takes effect?
You know, unless there's some kind of exception, it should go into effect by the time the next school year takes place.
All right, thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.